casually mentioned to my mother that I found my father on social media. She started screaming that I was dead to her. My father left when I was 6. And my mother spent 20 years reminding me how he ruined our lives. I never questioned it because why would she lie? So when I mentioned finding his profile online, I expected her to get quiet or change the subject. Instead, she started sobbing and threatening to disown me before I even finished my sentence. She grabbed my arm hard enough to leave marks and said, "I almost died keeping you alive and you want to run back to the man who threw us in the trash." Within days, she had turned my aunts and cousins against me, and everyone was calling to tell me how ungrateful I was. But the more my mother talked about what a monster my father was, the more I noticed she never actually said what he did. It was always vague and emotional, never specific. I started wondering what she was so afraid of me finding out. I contacted my father and he responded within minutes like he'd been waiting 20 years for that exact message. We met at a coffee shop and I almost didn't recognize him. He looked tired and nervous and nothing like the monster I'd built up in my head. He had a folder with him and before I could ask anything, he started pulling out documents. Custody battle records showing he fought for me for 3 years until he ran out of money. Letters he sent that came back unopened. Birthday cards for every single year that I never received. He watched me flip through them and I could see him holding his breath like he was terrified I would call him a liar and walk out. I asked why he stopped fighting and his hands started shaking. He said my mother told the courts he was dangerous and got a restraining order. That wasn't even the real reason he had to leave. He said about a year before he left, there was a fire at my grandfather's house. He said he helped my mother with the insurance claim because he thought it was just a terrible accident. Then he found out it wasn't. By the time he understood what she had done, his signature was already on everything. She told him if he ever tried to take me or tell anyone the truth, she would make sure he went to prison. While she walked free. I asked him why he didn't just tell me, and he said he tried. He said he sent me letters explaining everything, but they all came back unopened with my mother's handwriting on the envelope. He told me to ask her what really happened to my grandfather's house and watch her face when I said it. I drove home thinking about that fire. I barely remembered it. Everyone always said it was an accident. I went to my mother's house the next day. She opened the door and immediately asked why I was looking at her like that. I told her I met with Dad and I know what you did. Her face went pale, but she started talking fast, saying whatever he told me was a lie, that he was manipulative, that he'd probably been planning this for years. I didn't say anything else. I just waited. She kept talking, filling the silence, her voice getting higher and faster. She said my father always had a way of making people feel sorry for him. She said he probably cried for me and I probably fell for it. I still didn't say anything. She went very still and then started defending herself against things I hadn't accused her of. She said the insurance investigation was closed 20 years ago and nobody could prove anything now. She said my father helped her file the paperwork, so he was just as guilty as she was. Then she said, "Your grandfather wasn't even supposed to be home that night. I checked his schedule. It would have been fine if he hadn't forgotten his pills." I felt the floor tilt under me. She set the fire knowing when he would be home and planned around it. My father found out, and she trapped him so completely that his only choices were prison or running. She saw my face change and stopped talking. I watched her realize what she had just said out loud. She tried to recover, tried to say I was twisting her words, but it was too late. I pulled one of the birthday cards from my jacket pocket, still sealed, and held it up so she could see her own handwriting on the envelope where she'd written "Return to sender." I told her she let me grow up believing my father threw me away like garbage, so I would never go looking for the truth. She reached for my arm, and I stepped back and walked out the door. I drove until I found an empty parking lot, and I sat there for a long time. I kept hearing her voice saying she checked his schedule. I kept thinking about my father sitting in that coffee shop with 20 years of birthday cards, waiting for me to believe him. I picked up my phone and I called him.